what kind of the services are going to be served to you by a cloud service provider? And there is going to be a catalog from which you are going to consume these services. Okay, so same here there, what is going to be in there? A general theme I have collaborated over here. So first of all, I have some compute service where we require to use processing powers, RAM, and every of those kind of a thing, right? Which help us to compute anything. So there is virtual machine, like in AWS, we will be launching IC2 instance, right? Then there is some app services, which will be like, web app service in Azure. Then there is container and Kubernetes. And I know Lakshmi Narayan is working with the container and Kubernetes more, right? So this is something that is happening right now. So we have the container which is using processing power. Kubernetes is more of an orchestrator, but we'll be putting it in that category that yes, it is using processing power, handling thing, and all that kind of a scenario. We can do the define network policy, network rules, security policies as well through the help of the Kubernetes, right? Okay, so a lot of the different things you can always do with the Kubernetes, how to handle scenario and all. So this is the pure computing service. Then there will be coming something like the network services. Okay, one of the simplest one. So there is going to be something like the traffic management. Okay, there is going to be the route tables and all those kind of a thing. So yesterday we were talking about the route 53. Okay, these are a bit costly solution like express route as well. Okay, express route is actually quite expensive one. So what it is doing, okay, one common thing when you are thinking about the data center around the globe. Okay, Azure has its own data center around the globe. AWS has its own data center around the globe. So in Azure, what they have a private network which is connecting all the data center around the globe through a private their own networking line. So they have spread that whole across the world. So now what is happening rather than your trip, and in some cases, let's say that you are working on something, you don't want your data to travel through the public network. So you can opt for something like the express route. Now, if you are using that thing, you will be establishing connection, purchasing. It is a metered service. So they will be charging you. And in this case, whenever, they will be deploying a whole, if this is your office environment. So what they will be doing, they will be going ahead and establishing gateway. You might be working with some other network service provider, and they will be making sure that your organization is connected with the first cloud service provider, and then they are connecting you through the privately to the Azure network, and then all of your traffic services that you want to access, either it is O365 service, either it is Azure services, all that you can access on a private network. So it reduces the chance of getting your data exposed to the public network. So that is always going to be in there, this option as well, right? So we have some different network services. Then there come different storage services. So two things are there: object storage service, right? Right. So what is the objects? Okay. So you can define things like an object. Okay, you are storing anything like a PDF file, a video file, and working them as a simple object, and treating them, giving them a separate link, accessing them while separately. So when we'll be going to the your storage accounts, we'll be seeing the object storage. Like in S3, you can store the different object, different type of file, right? Store them as a whole. You can create disks in there. You will be having the databases. So we'll be playing around today with the disk a bit as well, right? With the databases as well, right? So what is here and how the things are deployed, that will be there. Now, many of the cloud services are also providing your IoT services, right? So in the IoT service, when we are talking about the IoT service, what will be the unique things in the IoT service? So, they will be providing you something like the for the networking, a centralized solutions. So like here, it will be working as a hub kind of a service, which can receive all the incoming or input signal coming from different IoT devices, then forward it to the somewhere else, right? So forward it to the, on the back end, you have deployed some, a single application. So cloud also provide you some single, like IoT, we have the Azure Sphere, Azure Hub, those kind of a service. Hub can receive the signal from all the places and forward it to the, your Sphere, if you have something like Sphere service or anything. And you can have a centralized, central application as well, where you can see what kind of signal you are receiving, and you can publish, subscribe kind of thing. You can give them the instruction, like you find that one of the refrigerator is not cooling, right? You try to reduce its temperature, it is not working. So you can order it like to restart itself, reboot itself. So those kind of changes you can make. So we have different IoT services, IoT system, and in the security itself, Microsoft has one service. I don't know whether you heard about it or not. There is Microsoft Defender for IoT, right? A service which will be constantly monitoring for the your anything that goes wrong with the IoT services itself. That is going to be the one part over there. Then there is going to be the big data and analysis part, right? So here, when you will be seeing onto this particular part, okay, big data and the analysis part. So when we are talking about this big data and analysis part over here, so there are big data services from the Azure itself and from the AWS itself for giving you doing performing all the ETL, working with the Hadoop and different services as well. They are there, like Databricks, Azure Databricks services there. Azure, I'm kind of forgetting the exact name because I usually don't work with them, but there are a lot of other services as well, which is working all the time with the, your Azure database services. That's what needs to be done, how things should be over there. So all those kind of a thing, right? So different kind of thing, like one is this Nexus Analytics service. Data with the Databricks, we have the Synapses Analytics, we have the Azure HD Insight. These kind of a big data analysis tools services are always there. With that, now I'm just putting the Azure machine learning, but all other platform also give this one. And I have seen this working space. So okay, the guys who are working with the AWS mode, so does we have something similar in the AWS? Like in Azure, what we have the different services like your speech services, voice recognition services, image recognition services. Plus, in addition to that, you can deploy your own machine learning environment where you can develop, train, and everything, and you can work with the Python, R, and everything, and develop your own testing framework, developing framework. So, okay, because I'm not working that much with the AWS. So can you let me know that if there is any similar kind of services, either in GCP or in the AWS? Now, apart from this, there is always going to be some serverless computing. I think, and in reality, those are not serverless, okay? And they will be running on some physical server somewhere. But for you, it will feel like that, you are trying to decompose your, application, right? You just don't want to develop a whole application. You just want to decompose your application onto these small modules itself. So what you will be doing, you will be having different serverless computing servers. Like we have the one of my favorite, which I use with the security solution for the automation and all. That is going to be your Azure Logic App. Okay, that is going to be something which I a lot of the time I use this one. So there is this, there is going to be the Azure apps. Okay, different things. So what it usually do is it is going to go ahead and trigger at a specific point. Like where I use my Logic app is in my SIM tool. Okay, In my SIM tool, I am creating one rule which is detecting any threat, okay, which is detecting, let's say, brute forcing attack on a machine, right? So when I'm seeing there is going on brute force or password spraying attack on some of my machine, I want to take some action, like I want to deallocate it, or I want to send a message on Team, Slack, or I want to go ahead and block that particular IP on the firewall. So these kind of some automation task I want to perform. So for that thing, I can use consumption based your logic app. And what it will do, I will say that, okay, you need to trigger whenever this rule is generating any alert. So as soon as alert is triggered, this serverless computing function will be triggered. I will be telling it any of these tasks that you have to do this thing. It will perform that task, and again, task is done. It is not no longer going to be evoked. So it only run for that particular time period, and you are paying for that small amount of time period itself. And then there is going to be the DevOps working with them. So to give you the, we have the different, those boards as well, like Kanban boards, right? So, using the GitHub and Git policies and all those kind of a thing. So yes, these kind of a solutions are also provided onto the your Azure itself. So Azure is also providing similar kind of a services where you are going and working with the your testing environment as well. So we call that Azure Dev Test Lab. There is going to be the GitHub Actions, pipelines, artifact, board, repositories, test plan. So those kind of some DevOps based solutions are always going to be in there. There is going to be the G for the testing, Dev Test Lab. Although, to be honest, never worked with these things, never got a chance to work with something like the DevOps, but I know that there are these services like that that is also provided to you on the particular location, right? Now, in an overview part, so these overview kind of a services is from my end, okay, whatever I can recollect, right? So for anything, actually, there is always going to be challenge, okay, and I can see here good amount of experience as well. And another question will be like, uh, okay, have you been on those meetings that do you want to shift from the cloud to the sorry, from the on-premise to cloud? We need to migrate over there, or we need to adopt a whole cloud as the deploying our infrastructure. Yes, in for the or any organization in the planning part, because there are two things. One is the migration, and second is the adaptation framework, right? You're adopting the whole platform, like from next week, or let's say after 1 month or 1 year, we are planning to move into the cloud to save the cost. Like this thing suddenly happened due to the COVID scenario as well, right? So how you can go and adapt? What should be the different step plans? Choosing that what could be good for us or not. Those kind of a things are always one of the thing that is going to be in there, right? That is the adaptation. Then migration is for the one service. You are focusing on one service. Like recently, what I did was migrating the your we have that VMware ESXi, right? So if you have workload running over there, so we need to create a migration service and move the thing to the cloud. So that specific workload to the cloud itself. So that is related to particular service. Like you want to migrate your database, right? Your data from the cloud, from the on-premise to the cloud. So those are very small services.